So we'll pick up in 25 and verse 19. Confidence in an unfaithful man in a time of trouble is like a broken tooth and a foot out of joint. What do we mean by confidence? Trust. Trusting somebody to follow through. Well, the description for the man is an unfaithful man, one who has shown a pattern of not following through, one who is not dependable, reliable. When you get to a time of trouble, when you actually need them to do something, it likens it to having a broken tooth. Anybody ever had a broken tooth? Okay. Trying to eat a steak or get through something significant when you have a portion of your mouth that is unreliable and painful is hard. It's hard to accomplish the task, and it hurts. That's the imagery here. And a foot out of joint. I've heard of dislocated shoulders. I don't know if I've ever heard of a foot that's out of socket, but if you needed to run a race and your foot was out of socket, how was that going to go? Probably not going to do it. Not going to get very well. What if the enemy's chasing you? It's time of trouble. You got to hightail it. You better hop. Yeah. It's painful. It's difficult. You may not succeed at all. So those are two very strong word pictures to describe the pain, the difficulty, the heartache, and how you just can't do what you need to do if you've depended on someone who is unfaithful. And so picking wisely friends and making sure that we're the faithful person, that people can depend upon us. We don't want to make it like that for other people, that when things are difficult, they cannot depend that what we say that we're going to actually follow through with. All right? Any questions or thoughts on 19? Verse 20. As he that taketh away a garment in cold weather, and as vinegar upon nitre, so is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. So this reverses it. This gives you the two word pictures first, and then the application. So, he that taketh away a garment in cold weather. So let's say Patrick owes me some money, and I say, I want some collateral. He said, I don't have anything other than my coat. I said, that's fine. Give me your coat. And you're like, it's 20 degrees outside. Give me your coat. What would you think? Well, you owe me money. You don't have a choice in this. What would you think of that, lender of money if they're being so cruel and merciless to someone who is, suffering because you want your stuff back so badly that you're using their very garments to protect them from the elements as collateral? Not a good thing, right? It is a lack of mercy, a lack of compassion. Hard-hearted jerk. Okay? Now, this other one's a little bit more obscure, unless you know what nitre is. Nitre is like baking soda. What happens when you mix baking soda and vinegar? You have this chemical reaction. It fizzes, yeah. Now imagine you had that in your teeth. You're like brushing your teeth with baking soda. You do that and you put some vinegar in there. Right? That's a word picture.
That's what David should have done to make it think that he's crazy.
Well, he just dribbled spit down his beard. But yeah, all right. Do vinegar and nitre play nice together? No, you have this eruption. It's volatile. It's bubbling over. Not so good. So is he that singeth songs to a heavy heart. Well, what's a heavy heart? Someone's grieving. Someone who's sad. Someone who's discouraged. Someone who's down. And you come up to them and you start singing, hey, diddle diddle, the cat and the fiddle, and, Cotton Eye Joe, and all sorts of other just silly songs that are, happy and upbeat. And you're not recognizing this person is mourning. They could be sitting there at the graveside of our loved one, and you're being foolish by, buck up, let's sing some songs. Like, you're not being respectful. You're not being compassionate, right? Like taking away from garments, and they don't mix together. Right, this idea of just frivolity when someone's be silent, yeah, that'd be wisdom. And so, like vinegar and baking soda don't play nice together. You shouldn't sing songs of mirth or merriment when you're around someone who's sad and discouraged. Make sense? We're talking about sympathy and empathy, recognizing someone else is in pain. Empathy is when you can feel that pain with them to some extent, and you care. Does this make sense? Do you care about what other people are going through? Are you reading the room and then responding appropriately? All right. This next two verses are one sentence. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. And if he be thirsty, give him water to drink. For thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. I thought Jesus said, of old you've heard that you should hate your enemy, but I say unto you, you should love them. Did Scripture tell people to hate their enemies? No, but that's how they had been taught. So they were being taught by religious-minded folk that it was okay to hate your enemies. And Jesus is saying, that's not what I said, right? Because he wrote the book. And so here, if your enemy be hungry, feed him. If he's thirsty, give him water. For thou shalt heap coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward thee. There is a natural consequence of when you show mercy to somebody who doesn't like you. They're not really happy about it. It's shameful in some respects, angry. There's a lot of different emotional aspects to it. But the second part of that promise is the Lord's going to reward thee, is that you're being obedient. You're doing what he said to do in spite of your carnal reaction, which is, this guy has been mean to me, and he's suffering now. Well, no, I'm not going to help you. Go chew on some grass. Nebuchadnezzar. No. Now, this actually is quoted in Romans. We haven't quite gotten to it yet, but go to Romans chapter 12. Let's just start reading in verse 17, but we'll get to it. Romans 12:17. Recompense to no man evil for evil. Recompense means to pay back. Don't pay back evil for evil. So if you've received evil from somebody, do you give it back? No. Provide things honest in the sight of all men. If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Dearly beloved, avenge not yourselves, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Verse 20, therefore, here's your quote from Proverbs, therefore, if thine enemy hunger, feed him, if he thirst, give him drink, for in so doing thou shalt heap coals of fire on his head. Be not overcome of evil, but overcome evil with good. So the Apostle Paul pulls this scripture from Proverbs and gives it the conclusion about this is what you're supposed to do, rather than returning evil for evil. Will you have enemies who don't like you and hate you? Yeah, if you're following Jesus, he's promised that you will. But it's not your job to get back at them, to settle scores. The Lord says, I'll take care of that. You do what's right. You show mercy. In doing so, you'll heap coals of fire on their head. Overcome evil with good. All right. Any questions on 21, 22? Okay. So, any limitations on this? Any exceptions to this enemy category? This is the most common. Yeah, but what about, you don't understand what they did to me, right? They vote differently from me. They're from a different country. Whatever, right? Insert. Bingo. Well, what if they're not? Doesn't change your directions. Well, what if they hate Christians? Okay, that's kind of anticipated explicitly. So yeah. Verse 23. Let's talk about gossip. The north wind driveth away rain, so doth an angry countenance a backbiting tongue. All right, so this was a feature of the weather there in Israel. If you've got rain clouds coming in and then suddenly this strong north wind kicks up, you know what's going to happen to those rain clouds? They're going to get blown away. They can't stay. They can't hang out. They probably noticed that pattern because the time when they really need some rain, they're like, oh no, the north wind's starting. Woo. Okay, so this is the word picture. Right? This story is not about, the point is not the rain, but when the north wind comes, the rains move on out. In like manner, an angry countenance, a backbiting tongue. So, if you come to me and you're saying, Brother Jonathan, you will never guess what Brother so-and-so did. And then you proceed to try and tell me all the things that are none of your business to tell. If I indulge you in that, oh, really? Tell me more. What is that going to do? Encourage it. It's going to foster you. But if I give you a look, so that you know that I know that you know you ought not be saying this, what are you inclined to do? Hush. So this is revealing that you have the power to shut down gossip, backbiting, tale-bearing that's going on in your presence. How you respond to it is either encouraging it or discouraging it. So the same way that the north wind has the ability to stop those rain clouds, your angry countenance, this is refusing to either encourage or tolerate it. And I'm not saying you can't be silent. You don't have to be silent. You can say something, Brother so you know this is not something we need to be talking about. And close the door. All right? Because if you allow that kind of thing to go on once in your presence, guess what? Next time something comes up, they've got a listening ear. All right? Questions on that? 24. It is better to dwell in the corner of a housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. All right. What kind of roof do you think you have on the corner of a housetop? Probably none. If you're on the housetop, you're dwelling on top of the house. And you don't even have the whole roof to yourself. Now, think of like the adobe structures out in New Mexico, so flat top roof. Okay, so you're renting a portion, not even the whole roof. You have no, ceiling over your head, and you just got a corner of it. Just you got two walls to kind of have a windbreak, and that's where you're sleeping. That's the word picture. It says that's preferable to live in a wide house with a brawling woman. So is peace within our homes very, very, very valuable? Absolutely. Well, what if I just have a good home and I can put up with, which is more important, having the stuff or having peace in the home? It's better to not have any of the stuff, but to have peace in your home. All right? Any questions on that? As cold waters to a thirsty soul, so is good news from a far country. All right, Elliot. On our trail, we ran out of water, found a little trickle of water. We've been hiking for several hours. It was cold. It was refreshing. Felt nice, right? It was. I mean, you feel revitalized. You're encouraged. All right, and keep going. That's your word picture. Cold waters to a thirsty soul. Cold waters to a soul who's not thirsty. Okay, well, that's nice. But when you have a thirst, and then you receive, that cold water, it's so refreshing, and you're vitalized, and you're encouraged. That's the word picture pointing to when you hear good news from a far country. Maybe like when an angel comes with tidings of great joy. His news came all the way from heaven. Right, to these shepherds, that there's something new going on. The good news of the gospel. This is word from a far country, from where we're at, but still very, very good news and encouraging.
Sister Myra and I were talking about that today because, Stephen was talking about his background and what he grew up in, and then Bailyn was talking about her background and how as people who grew up in church all of our life, and we've heard grace all of our life, and we've become not insensitive to it, but it becomes very commonplace to us.
The amazingness of it kind of wears off.
Yes. But then when you listen to other people talk about grace and how it changes their perspective and their life, then it renews in you a sense of awe of, oh yeah, that's not what everybody has always lived under or believed. And so she and I were talking about that at lunch, that that's one reason it's good to have new people in your church, because they can help refresh, I guess, your view of grace, because if we all been in grace for 50 years, we just kind of get like, oh yeah, we know that. So that kind of reminds me of this verse.
Yeah, we can be numb to it. Yeah, as I get to interact with folks who are young in their walk, it's been very encouraging to me, and so I'm very glad for that. And if you hear of someone that had been astray or prodigal in their life, and then you hear about that they have come back and they're now following the Lord, I mean, just what good news that is, and how encouraging it is. I mean, that's the same picture here, that good news from a far country.
Because really, if they grew up under all that bondage that they grew up under, they see no forgiveness, because all they're going to be told is, Stephen was even sharing that other people in his family who aren't allowed to come to family gatherings because of things that they've done in the past. Mm-hmm. That there's no forgiveness for those things.
Just the shunning mentality. All right. Verse 26. A righteous man falling down before the wicked is as a troubled fountain and a corrupt spring. I don't know exactly what a troubled fountain is, but I suspect it's not good. A corrupt spring, you think that'd be maybe a poisoned, spring of water. Something that if you're going to drink from yourself or your animals, you may die from, as opposed to being good and helpful. So a righteous man falling down before the wicked. Well, you could be falling down because the wicked are overpowering you in might, or falling down because they've slain you. But either way, this idea of the wicked ultimately prevailing isn't good, and it's as bad as a poisoned well. That's not going to be the end result, but we know that there are times when the wicked rule and the wicked are in power, and when the righteous are suffering for that, it's not a good thing. Right? It's never a good thing, regardless of what they may be trying to accomplish or whatever means you're trying to justify. The wicked operating is no good.
Could the spring be like bitter, like when children of Israel?
Yeah, the bitter water was one they couldn't drink. I don't know if it was bitter because it was salty or bitter because it was poisonous, but it was not good for freshwater drinking. Yeah, that's exactly the picture it's talking about, corrupt spring. All right, 27. It is not good to eat much honey. All right, anyone ever overindulged in something sweet? The time where you feel sick and maybe you even throw up, or you have had too much, and it went from being nice and pleasant in the first few bites to then an hour of gorging later. You're like, why did I do that? And you're miserable, and you need to find the Tums, right? In similar manner, so for men to search their own glory is not glory. Right? A little bit of honey tastes sweet, and it's a good thing. Too much honey is never a good thing, and it's always a problem, causing this kind of bitterness and sickness. It says, if you're trying to seek out your own glory, well, this is the idea of self-promotion, right? I want people to see how great I am. I want this promotion. I want this name. I want this recognition. I want the news and everybody to know about me and what I'm doing. He's saying that's not really glory anyway. And it's as about as effective as eating, a gallon of honey. Right? It's just make you sick. Jesus would describe, trying to promote yourself as that's when you're basically inviting the Lord to humble you. The Lord has a habit of lifting up and exalting, raising up higher, those who humble themselves. Right? Would you say that Mary gave a very humble answer in response to the angel? Yeah, and I think even in her conversation with Elizabeth, not, wow, are we not great? I mean, look at us. This is so sweet. Like, they are all going to be so jealous of us because we've got the super babies and they don't. And it's obviously because we have earned this and we are worthy. She's like, I'm vile. I am lowly. And yet the Lord has done this great thing to me. Yes, I'm very fortunate, very blessed, but not woohoo. Self-promotion. All right. 28. He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls. Okay, let's look at the word picture first. What kind of a city has no walls? Okay. A conquered one or futurely conquered one. One that has very little defenses. So any enemy can just march in and basically take over because you don't have any fortifications to keep them out. Well, what about a city that's broken down? It's been conquered. It's been burned. They've thrown the houses down. Is that city of much value? No. So you've got this kind of burned out shell of a city that has no fortifications. Does anyone want to come in and even live there? No. That's the word picture describing a man who has no self-control to regulate his own actions, words, behavior. That's what it means to have rule over your own spirit, is where you maintain self-control. Lashing out in anger, violence, impulsive drinking, impulsive eating, impulsive spending. Well, I just can't help it. What you're saying is that you are not exercising self-control. And the word picture there is that you are as worthless in your life and how you're governing it as a city that has been burned out and has no defenses. So self-control is a temperance, right? That idea of being temperate, that is an element of the character of the child of God, not just saying, well, I can't help it, it's just me, it's who I am. That's the old man's justification and excuses. Thoughts?